No way to prevent this, says only nation where this regularly happens. The popular satirical website The Onion hits close to home for many, as Americans experience gun violence and mass shootings at levels far beyond any other wealthy country, including 100 times more than Great Britain. Studies have found mass shootings are occurring with increasing frequency. On average, there's a mass shooting every 24 hours. In November, a gunman killed a dozen people at the Thousand Oaks Bar in California. Just days earlier, 11 were killed at the Pittsburgh area synagogue. President Trump responded, the shooting could have been prevented if there was an armed guard present.
This is a case where if they had an armed guard inside, they might have been able to stop him immediately.
Of the 30,000 people killed by guns every year, the vast majority are the result of suicides. School shootings, like the one at Parkland High in Florida earlier this year, spark mass protests and walkouts across the nation.
Shame on you!
But the powerful gun lobby has rebuffed calls for real change in how arms are regulated. Where America thus far has failed, other countries have found successful models for curbing gun violence. After a 1996 school shooting, Britain took a different approach. The government banned assault rifles and handguns, implemented stringent background checks, and bought back thousands of guns.
I think most people in the UK are gobsmacked by what happens in the States, and you know we get the stories at a sickening regularity about the mass shootings, and we think, why isn't there better control? You know, the automatic weapons is a case example. Why do you need automatic weapons? So there's something from a social and a health perspective that is intuitive. You know, if you have better control, you will get less children, less people murdered through these weapons.
Today, gun ownership levels are 25 times higher in the United States. And while there are slightly higher levels of violent crime in Britain, there are 160 times more gun homicides in America.
This is a really fundamental public health issue internationally. So we tend to think of guns as being something to do with crime and violence and justice. But actually, as doctors, we're campaigning for seatbelt legislation so people don't die in car accidents. We're campaigning for tobacco legislation so people don't die of lung cancer. And it's fundamental to our role is to be advocates and campaigners for a safer society.
Doctors and public health experts have been increasingly speaking out, to which the National Rifle Association responded, someone should tell self-important anti-gun doctors to stay in their lane.
So arrogant. It's incredible. I think anybody who comes down to an ER department in any hospital around the world seeing the effects of gun crime, they need to, let's spend a bit of time with the doctors and find out why it's so.
There's a general trend for vested interest to protect their money, their income stream. And what they don't like is for respected members of civil society like doctors and lawyers and other people with a voice to make powerful arguments based on evidence. What they want to continue doing is propagandize the public with fake arguments like the man with the gun can protect himself. That's complete nonsense. We know that the more guns that there are available in society, the more likely they're to be used on each other and in criminal activity.
Earlier this year, Donald Trump, who has opposed gun control measures, said while Britain has fewer shootings, there are much higher levels of knife attacks.
They don't have guns. They have knives. And instead, there's blood all over the floors of this hospital. They say it's as bad as a military war zone hospital. Knives.
He has a point. There is an increase in knife violence. A lot of that is related to drug and criminal gangs. But we've also had defunding of police services in this country, so that may be the explanation there. But can you imagine the same people having automatic weapons? They'll be able to do a lot more harm. So the solution isn't to start replacing knives with guns. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
But some argue gun regulation alone does not hold the answer.
I think the reason for the high homicide rates in the United States are principally the inequality. Our homicide rates seem to be rising again because our inequality has risen, because guns are less easily available. People do tend to use knives more. Gun control is a very important part of the answer, but you also have to reduce your inequality.
Research has found extreme inequality that exists in the United States and Great Britain is correlated with higher homicide rates.
We found that the relationship between homicides and income inequality is slightly less clear when you don't control for gun ownership. But when you control for gun ownership, the relationship with inequality is even clearer. So basically, gun control makes some difference, but it's very far from making all the difference in homicide rates.
And some countries have lots of guns, also have low homicide rates.
Countries like Finland have very high rates of gun ownership, but very low homicide rates. And I think that's because Finland is a remarkably egalitarian society compared to the United States.
We'll continue to report on different models of gun policy from the U.S. and abroad. For The Real News, this is Jessel Noor reporting from Bradford, England.